At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in. So today, talking about something that I know is near and dear to your heart. I can tell by, just looking at some of you that you practice this often. We talked about prayer last week. This week I want to talk about biblical fasting. And I know some of us, we practice fasting quite a bit, right? Some of us, we kind of went the opposite direction of fasting last night. They just kept bringing food. And it was the irony of me. I'm sitting there just, gorging myself with food, and I'm going, all right, number one, gluttony is a sin. And number two, I'm supposed to talk about fasting in the morning, and here I am taking chicken home in a bag, and I'm like, this is probably not the best, the best thing going here. But fasting, what is fasting? Anybody know what fasting is? Anybody on the front row? What's fasting? A period of time not eating. Everybody agree with that? It's a period of time that you dedicate to not eat. Some of you ladies are like, that's dieting. That's like a monthly thing. Like, I'm fasting up a storm. Some of us that have been in between jobs, we call that starvation. It's not so much fasting, it's just being hungry. Fasting, what is biblical fasting? What are some of the key points to fasting? Fasting is it's a period of time to go without earthly pleasure, to focus more on a spiritual mindset. It's to focus our hearts more in tune with God by denying ourselves pleasures here. So I do want to say, while food is the main one, because food is what we love more than anything. I mean, let's be honest. Dairy Queen's Blizzards are phenomenal. Amen. Hey. And when they throw one up for 99 cents, it's even more fantastic. And if they could work out a deal with Whataburger where taquitos were 99 cents and Blizzards were 99 cents, I might gain some weight. But biblical fasting is giving up pleasure. It's giving up anything that you desire here to be more in touch with God there. And so I want to talk about 5 key points to fasting. Number 1, we're expected to do it. Did you know you're expected to fast? So if you haven't ever done it, surprise, Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 16, Jesus is speaking. Matthew 6 and verse 16, and Jesus has just given the model prayer. We talked about that last week. That when you pray, showing all adoration to God. God, you are holy. God, you are awesome. God, it's for your glory and it's for your honor. And somebody took some excellent notes last week because we talked about this. And then Wednesday night, Sarah gave probably one of the most genuine and authentic, look at Trey's face, one of the most genuine and authentic prayers I've ever heard. We talked with her about salvation. We talked with her about sin. She knew all of that. And we said, okay, we're just going to let you pray. And it was, I don't use this word often, but it was gorgeous. It was one of those things that when I got up and walked out, it was an honor to have been in the presence of. So showing God reverence in prayer, respect in prayer, asking Him with supplication, with petition, God, this is what I need. And then Jesus talks in verse 14 and 15 about forgiveness. Don't bring me a prayer without forgiveness, because if your heart is still hard against people, if your heart is still hard against the people you are praying for, I'm not going to honor that. Okay? Those prayers that we've all prayed, where your teeth are like this, and you're like, Lord, I pray for this person. I pray you give me patience to deal with this person. And God's going, no. Forgiveness, a soft heart. And then look at what Jesus says. He turns to His disciples and He says, and whenever you fast, verse 16, whenever you fast, don't put on a gloomy face as the hypocrites do. For they neglect their appearance so that they will be noticed by men when they are fasting. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that your fasting will not be noticed by men, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Okay? We've all done this. Ladies, I'm going to make you guys really mad because I'm going to talk about dieting quite a bit today. And guys, we don't really worry so much about dieting. But if you've ever been on a diet, everybody knows you're on a diet. Everybody. Because lunchtime rolls around. Trust me, I work with 30 women. When one of them is on a diet, I know. Because I'm sitting there eating my chicken or eating my, ravioli out of a can or just whatever it happens to be that day, working on my calorie intake. And the ladies walk in and that looks so good. And some of them, they'll come over and they'll stare into my lunchbox and I'm pulling it closer and they're like, what is that Chicken Express? Oh my gosh. And they're just salivating. You must be on a diet. Yes. I'm so hungry. Okay? With fasting, don't do that. You may dedicate a day to yourself that you're fasting. Don't tell everybody. Okay? Number one, because you're not supposed to. And number two, because God is looking at what you're doing from a pure motive. Okay? The Pharisees of the day would walk out with sackcloth on them and they would announce to the world, we're fasting today. This is sort of the issue I have with the Catholic Church in Lent. The entire Catholic Church goes, we're all going to fast. And every Catholic I know is like, I can't eat meat. I hate Lent. I wish it would just be over. And I'm like, I'm not sure you're doing this for the proper motives. It should be in secret. It should be a personal thing between you and God or you and other people with God. But when you come out, don't look sullen. Don't look upset. Don't sit at the table with your friends and go, sure would be good to eat with you guys, but I'm fasting. I'm holy. And I'm starving. So please, just try not to chew so loud because I'm really getting agitated. Okay? Don't do that. Also, don't make it a point to let everybody know that you're fasting. Okay? If you have a big dinner coming up with your family, maybe that's not the day to fast. Okay? Thanksgiving Day, I wouldn't choose that as a fasting day. Now, if you're just convicted about it and you're convicted about gluttony and you're convicted about waste in America, believe me, I'm convicted about those things. And some of you are like, no, I'm eating the turkey. But Thanksgiving Day, probably not the best day to pick to fast because the entire family's eating. They're like, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Are you sick? No. Are you mad? No. Why aren't you eating? What's wrong with you? I'm just not eating. And they all stare at you funny. Yeah, I'm fasting. And they're like, on Thanksgiving? What's wrong with you? But if you're going out with family, don't pick that day. If you're going out on a date with a girl, don't pick that as your fasting time. Because guys, I'm going to tell you a big turnoff for girls is you watching them eat. They don't like it. Even when you've been married and together for 14 years, what are you going to get? Well, I'm not really hungry. No, you order something and you eat it. But fasting, you're expected to do it. Notice what Jesus says. Whenever you fast, don't put on a gloomy face. He doesn't say if you fast. And this is a message that's been preached a whole lot. Jesus doesn't say if you decide to do this. Jesus doesn't say, maybe in the future, if it feels good with you. It's when you fast. He's looking at his guys and he's going, listen, when this happens, do it this way. And he doesn't have to clarify. He doesn't have to explain. They know what fasting is. They understood it. So it's expected of you. Think about when is the last time that you fasted. See, preachers like to ask that with prayer. And that's super convicting. When's the last time you honestly spoke to God? And I remember being a young guy or a kid, and a preacher would ask that, and I'm like, do meals count? Because if meals count, I am covered. No, when's the last time you honestly bowed before God and prayed a prayer? And I would go, but nobody ever even asked about fasting. It's so far out of the realm. Most of us, for some of us, you go, I've never done it. And I'm not going to embarrass people by a show of hands, but a lot of us, if I said, who's never fasted before in your life, voluntarily, a bunch of us would probably raise our hands. We've never done it. It's just not in my nature to go without food. But Jesus says it's something you need to do. Number 2, Isaiah chapter 58. The book of Isaiah, chapter 58, number 2. God will not honor a selfish or a wicked fast. We talked about prayer. We talked about prayer last week, and I just touched on it today. Those prayers, those wicked prayers, and those hateful prayers, those selfish prayers. God, this is what I need right now. Do it. Make it happen. Okay? Those magical genie prayers. God's not going to honor those. Fasting goes in the same way. Isaiah 58, verse 2. You know what? Let's just start at the beginning because I like it. Cry loudly and do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet and declare to my people their transgressions. Okay, so this is God speaking through Isaiah to the people. And He's saying, you, Isaiah, cry loudly and tell the people of their transgressions. Tell them of their sin, and to the house of Jacob their sin. Yet they seek me day by day, and they delight to know my ways, as a nation that has done righteousness and has not forsaken the ordinance of their God. They ask me for just decisions. They delight in the nearness of God. Why have we fasted and you do not see? Why have we humbled ourselves and you don't notice? So God is saying, look, Isaiah, speak this to the people. Tell the people they're desiring this closeness with me. They're desiring a nearness with me. And I've heard their cries saying that we're fasting. We're doing what we're supposed to do. Why are you not listening? Anybody ever felt that way with God? It's honest. We can be honest with each other. I've been there. I've prayed those prayers. God, why are you not hearing me? Is there something I need to do to get this out of the way between me and you? Is there something that I've done? Is there a reason that it seems like it's falling on deaf ears? And here's what God says. Why have we humbled ourselves and you do not notice? And God says, behold, on the day of your fast, you find your desire and you drive hard all of your workers. Behold, you fast for contention and strife, and to strike with a wicked fist. You do not fast like you do today to make your voice heard on high. Is it a fast like this which I choose, a day for man to humble himself? Is it for bowing one's head like a reed, and for spreading out sackcloth and ashes as a bed? Will you call this a fast, even an acceptable day to the Lord? Is this not the fast which I chose? So this is what God is saying. God is saying, you're fasting. You're using your fasting for things that are not my desire. You're bowing your head like a reed. It means you're just bent over by the wind. Whichever direction it blows, you're just bending. And you're driving your workers hard. And you're using a fast trying to get what you want. And here's what God says. He says, is this not the fast that I choose, to loosen the bonds of wickedness, to undo the bands of the yoke, and to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to divide your bread with the hungry, and bring the homeless poor into your house? And when you see the naked, cover him, and not to hide yourself from your own flesh? Then your light will break out like the dawn, and your recovery will speedily spring forth, and your righteousness will go before you. The glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. And then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry, and He will say, here I am. If you remove the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and speaking wickedness, and if you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then your light will rise in darkness and your gloom will become like midday. And the Lord will continually guide you, and He will satisfy your desire in scorched places and give strength to your bones. And you will be like a watered garden and like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. I love that. God is saying, you're doing this with the wrong motives. You're doing it, but you're just doing it to do it. The worst thing that could happen is we talk about fasting and you wake up in the morning tomorrow and go, I'm going to fast today because Matt told me to. Because the Bible says I'm supposed to, so I'm just going to fast today. For what purpose? Now, I don't know. Matt said it was good, so I'm fasting. It's sort of like prayer. The last thing you want to do is go, preacher told me to pray, so I'm going to pray. God, whatever you're doing up there, do it for me. Some of you are appalled by that. Some of you go, how dare you even make a mockery of that? But that's what we do. And people use fasting. The Israelites were using fasting, trying to get their own gain. And God's going, this is not it. What I want out of a fast is for you to be humbled, for you to come to me and humble yourself and go, God, exactly where I am is exactly where I don't need to be. And I need you to break the yoke. I need you to break this open so that I can be free. You guys know what a yoke is? Yeah, y'all are country kids. I've been at some churches. I say, you know what a yoke is? And they're like, the egg? No, the yoke. It's what went over the ox when he had to work, when he had to pull. God is saying this humbleness, this humility, when you call to me, I'm going to break this open so that you can run, so that you can be like a well-watered garden, so that you can be like a spring of life coming up. God is not going to honor a selfish or a wicked fast. So when you do it with the right motive. Do it with the right heart. One of the most beautiful things you can do, and this is honesty, we always say, would you pray for me? I need you to pray for me. I got some things going on. I'm not going to tell you what they are, so I don't want you to pray like, super specific, but I'm just going to say, pray for me. And we go, yeah, I'll pray for you. And then sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't, and that person kind of forgets who they told. One of the most beautiful things is to walk up to somebody and say, listen, I'm dealing with something, and I'm looking for a group of people who will fast with me and pray to God for me. Now we've stepped in a whole nother arena of powerful prayer. Now we've stepped in a whole nother arena of fellowship with one another. Because I'm not just flippantly saying, hey, pray for me because I'm sick. I'm looking at you going, we are struggling and I need you to fast. I need you to give up things and I'm going to give up things and I need you to go to God for me. I need you to love me. When you go in with a pure heart. Number 3, there's power in fasting. Matthew 4:2. There is power in your fast. Do you believe that? Nah? Anybody believe that? Fasting is powerful. It's powerful. It's kind of an ironic, contradictory statement because you feel super weak when you don't eat, right? You're not going to feel powerful, trust me. Start off with just one meal. I'm not even going to ask you to start with a day. But when you decide to fast, I'm going to talk when you decide to fast, start off with a meal, lunch. I'm going to give up lunch today, and I'm going to devote my lunch break to time with God, prayer, reading, praying specifically for people. Now listen, 2 hours after lunch, you're not going to feel powerful. You're not, especially you guys that work out in warehouses, you guys that are working outside in the heat, you're not going to feel powerful. You're going to feel drained. You're going to be like, this was a mistake. Anybody that's ever done a full day fast, the next day you wake up, you cannot get to breakfast fast enough because your body is just drained. I will tell you, around day 3, you kind of catch a second wind. After that, it kind of goes downhill. Some of these folks that I hear doing a 40-day fast, I've never attempted a 40-day fast. It's a little too extreme I don't have enough on me, I don't think, to make it through a 40-day fast. I look like the outcome of the 40-day fast. But I knew a lady that did it frequently. And she was like, I only permit myself water. And I'm like, good for you. And she's like, around day 20, you really start hurting. And I'm like, I could imagine. Fasting, there's power in fasting. Matthew chapter 4, verse 2. And Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness. This is verse 1. And to be tempted by the devil. And after he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he then became hungry. I love that. After he had fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, then he became hungry. Like, I could fast for like 40 minutes and be like, okay, I have Pop-Tarts in the car that I ate on the way up here, and I'm going to eat right after service. Like, I don't make it very long without food. And so here's Jesus 40 days, and he goes, I'm getting a little hungry. And that's when Satan comes. Now, it seems, like I said, contradictory because you say Jesus should be weak here. When Satan comes to him, he comes to him and he bribes him at his weakest physical moment. I know you're hungry. I know you're hungry. See, we have this vision. We have this idea that Satan came in with the red devil horns and he's standing before Jesus. And it was some ultimate supreme battle where Satan was like, eat these stones, turn them to bread. And Jesus was like, no. No, that's not how Satan comes at me. If that's how Satan comes to you, we need to have a talk. How does Satan come? How does Satan slip in? You know you're hungry. You know you're hungry. You've been doing this for 40 days. It's just bread. It's just too low. Nobody's going to know. You're out here in the wilderness. Nobody's going to know. What you do in secret, not that big a deal. You have the power. And I love that Satan affirms the power of Christ. You can do it. You can turn rocks into bread. You don't even have to be hungry. Just eat them. And you'll be so full. Notice he's attacking him when he's weakest in his physical. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. Satan is going to attack you at your weakest in your physical. Yeah?
Amen.
Right? When my wife and I, when we're out on a date, Satan isn't in my ear going, hey, look at that girl over there. Look at her. That's not the time that he does it. It's when my wife is at work. It's when I'm at work. And Satan's going, nobody would know. Nobody. Alcohol abuse, drug abuse, it's when you're sitting at home. Nobody's going to know. It's a small thing. Nobody's going to know. It's not going to hurt. It's not hurting anybody. You get drunk, that's not a big deal. And Satan creeps in there and he slides in there. He's so smooth with it. He's so smooth with it. What he didn't know and what Satan can't understand is that when I am at my weakest physically, God gives me the promise that when I am weak, He is strong. And it tears me up that Satan knows this scripture. He was there when it was written. He was around when it was recorded. But for whatever reason, it's like he omits those parts. When I am weak, I am physically draining myself so that God can build me up spiritually so that when you come at me with that stupid mess, I can go, nah. Nobody's going to know. I'll know. And He'll know. And if He knows, that's worse than everybody knowing. That's going to eat me worse than all of y'all knowing my sin, is that God knows. And so I am going to get so spiritually strong and so physically weak that when you come at me, I can protect this house. That God is so filling in me at that moment that when you come at me and go, nobody will, I go, shut it and get out. It's strong and it's powerful and it works. It works. I'm telling you, some of the strongest times that I feel spiritually is after fasting, when you've given it up, when you've laid something down, something that you enjoy. And we'll get to, does it have to be food? It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be starving, laying on the bed, I'm so hungry, God, getting all emotional. It can be as simple as this. It can be as simple as pulling that phone out. No, this is your time. This is your time. It can be as simple as getting the rods and reels ready, cleaning the gun, getting out to the deer stand. Guys, I've told y'all this before. This is why we love hunting. Because we call it hunting. Most of the time it's sitting. We can call it what we want. Let's not lie. My daughter knows. Daddy, well, you go hunting, but you never come home with anything. Baby, listen. Your father's a gatherer. But here's the thing. How many times has a hunting trip turned into a Bible study, turned into a prayer session? Not just a sleeping session, but a prayer session. God, I'm out here. I'm in your creation. I see your glory. Maybe it's just me. I look at it and I go, I'm sitting out in it anyway. I might as well give you thanks for it. I got nothing but time. I got nothing but time. How many times you've been on the lake, the sun's coming up, you're casting a rod, and you go, this is it. This is exactly what heaven's going to be like. This is it. I'm going to get there. The doors are going to open. There's going to be a brand new Skeeter bass boat, and God's going to go, the water's just fine. Yes! You know? Ladies, I don't know what y'all do. I don't know. It's a shopping day, you know? I don't know. What do y'all do? I'm never around. What do y'all do? I don't know. It's giving up of yourself. It's letting go of your physical. It's letting go of things that you love to spend time with God, so that when the enemy attacks, the house is fortified. Because trust me, the houses that crumble are the houses that have no security. They're the ones that have been so ingrained in pleasure, and due to that pleasure, have walked so far from fortifying the house with God. Fast for a specific purpose. There was too many verses to pull for one. So I'm just going to say the book of Jeremiah, the book of Daniel, and the man David. Fast for a specific purpose. Don't just not eat. Don't just give things up. All right, this is video game time. From 7 to 10 every night is video game time. Or it's Netflix time. Right? That's our house. It's Netflix time. We're going to pick a movie. We've watched them all, but we're going to pick one. And it's Netflix time. And we're going to lay there. We're going to lay on the couch as a family. And you know what? No, tonight we're not. We're going to give up Netflix time and we're going to do Bible study time. Why are we doing that? Just for the sake of doing it? Do we have a purpose when I fast? Am I fasting for you? Maybe you've come and told me that you have a specific reason. I'm struggling with this. Fine, then I'm fasting for that. And that daily fast, it's all for you. Every time I want to pick up my phone, I'm going to put it down and I'm going to fast for you. And my prayer is directed at you. Maybe it's your health. Can I use you as an example? Maybe it's for Miss Barr, who's going through things with her health. And every time I'm going to check Facebook, I think no, and I put it down, and that's a Facebook fast, and I'm going to do that for Miss Barb. And every time I'm going to pray specifically for Barb. Every time. Think about how many times you'd pray for somebody during the day. Fast for a reason. Have a purpose. Everything we do has a purpose. I'm going to go to lunch. My purpose, to get full. I'm going to come to church. My purpose, hopefully to get full. You like that? That's a play on spirituality. I'm going to go to court to get out of a ticket. You know, everything you do has a reason. I'm going to go to Walmart. You don't just go to Walmart. Well, some of you do go to Walmart just to walk around because I see you in there. We lap each other as we walk. You know, you have a purpose. Prayer should have a purpose. It shouldn't just be this ambiguous like, Lord, you got it. Fasting should have a purpose. Why am I doing this? Number 5, fasting is not only about food, and we've touched on this, and this is why I had to release the kids. 1 Corinthians. You guys are about to be mad at me if you've never read 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1. Chapter 7, verse 1. I can only imagine. Okay, so if you don't know, most of Paul's epistles in the New Testament, the epistles are, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st, 2nd Corinthians. These are answers to churches for things that they wrote Paul, kind of like a Dear Abby type deal. Paul would come in and start these churches and then he would move on. Well, the churches would have questions that would come up. Hey, how do we handle this? What do we do with this? What's the answer to this? And so Paul would get these and write letters back. These are the answers. So we don't really have the questions, we just have the answers. I'm very curious to see as to how the questions were worded on some of these. Now, concerning the things about which you wrote, this is 1 Corinthians 7:1, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Yikes! You hear that? Front row? Good for a man not to touch a woman. You're killing me. But because of immoralities, each man is to have his own wife, and each woman to have her own husband. Now let me back up. The reason Paul is writing this is Paul understands, as men, women only complicate things. No, that's such a joke, y'all, seriously. Paul is writing, and Paul, when you read in the epistles, Paul writes and he says, look, it's better for you guys to stay unmarried because it gives you more time to devote to the Lord. Okay? That's another thing I have with the Catholic Church. That's why priests don't marry, because they marry into the church and it gives them more time to devote to the church. The problem with that is we are sexual, sinful people. And over time, lust and desires grow and things happen. And that's why we're in the spot we're in. So this is what he's saying. He says it's good for you not to touch a woman because it gives you more time to give to God. If you can't control yourself, get married. That way it's not sinful. Okay? Because any relationship, you listening, outside of marriage is sin. The husband must fulfill his duty to his wife, and likewise, also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. So you control me, and I control you. It's a very odd situation there when you talk about marriage. But here's what it's saying. Here's what Paul is saying. You're creeping me out. You need to cover your ears. I feel like we're just getting too graphic. Here's what we're going to say. Fulfill to one another your marriage vows, because if you don't, somebody else will. Easy enough. Paul is saying, don't get in that situation. Now, stop depriving one another except by agreement for a time so that you may devote yourselves to prayer and come together again so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. So Paul is saying, look, I'm going to take fasting to a whole nother level. We are going to take the marriage covenant and we're going to use that as a time to fast. You two can come together in agreement and say, we are going to give up this to pray together. Guys, you want to talk about intimacy? Being intimate with somebody? What the world tells you is intimacy and what God tells you is intimate are not. Because I can tell you this, the world is going to tell you, you know what the world tells you intimacy is. Anybody can do that. Anybody. Praying with your spouse, understanding their needs, their desires, listening to them. When the person that you're with day in and day out goes, this is where I'm hurting and this is where I'm failing, that's intimacy. Intimacy is being with the same person for 50 or 60 years, and when they're laying in that hospital bed, you're hurting. Because you are so intimate. You are so with, you know every hurt, you know every joy, you know every pain, everything. That's intimacy. Not what the world tells you. Giving that up for a time. Giving up things for a time. It's not just food. I'm going to fast from social media. I've got a load of friends that do this. I'm going to fast from social media. And you don't hear from them on Facebook for like a month. And then that 31 days, I'm back, and it's like, we didn't even miss you. didn't even notice you were gone. Hate to break it to you. There's only about 2 people on my news feed that I'd even notice they were gone because they post all the time. But here's the thing. What are you fasting from? Fast from sleep. Some of us, we overkill on sleep, right? Some of us that don't get up till 1, 2, 5, 8, whatever. If you didn't see the sun go up or go down, you're sleeping too much. If it's dark all the time, give up some sleep. Say an hour a night. I normally go to bed at 9. I'm going to push that back to 10. I'm going to push that back to 11. And that hour, I'm not going to fill it with Netflix. I'm not going to fill it with video games or Snapchat. I'm going to fill it with the Word. I'm going to fill it with prayer. I'm going to make a list and I'm going to itemize those things that I'm really going to pray for people. Food, sleep. How about this one? This was one that hit me. This was one that killed me. Fast from negativity. Fast from negativity. When you're sitting there and something negative is about to come out of your mouth, grab it and just start praying. And pray for the person that you're about to speak on, or pray for the instance that you're about to speak on. I will never be good enough. You know what? You know what? God, please help me be good enough. Oh, this person, you know what? You know what? And don't grit your teeth. Don't grit your teeth. God, forgive me and help me to forgive the negativity. Fast from negativity. Use it to build the house. Okay? Whatever you're fasting from, I encourage you to fast. I encourage you. Find things in your life. Find in your life what is most important to you and get rid of it. Now, don't use that as a cop-out. Don't call into work tomorrow and be like, the preacher said, I'm supposed to give up on things that I love. And I love work, so I'm taking off Monday to fast. No. Although that would be awesome. And if it's truth, then hey, I'm with you. If you took off Monday to stay at home and be in prayer and in the Word, God bless you. Look at some of you are like, we could probably get a religious excuse for this. Figure out what you love. What do you love? What do you put before God? And whatever that is, give that time back to Him. And that's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard sometimes. Find things that you can give back to God. You know, I tell our kids, maybe it's sports. You know, we're those parents. Our kids are all into things. We've got soccer going, T-ball's about to start up, dance is going. We got all these things on different nights. We're always going. Saturdays are games and all this stuff. And I go, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's one Thursday night. We don't go to any practices. We don't do any of this stuff. And we devote that as a time to God. And my daughter's like, I can't miss dance. They'll yell at me. You know what? They'll be fine. Trust me, they can dance without you one time. They'll make it. Whatever it is, devote that time back to God.